we can. I think it'll work.
You got to record and play both. You can't have both.
Yeah, you need both.
You do?
Yep.
Well, I'll be done.
Now today is, let's try this again, Monday, February 25th,
Right.
1991.
Right.
And we're at Marcia Yaney Robertson's home in Milford, Michigan. Whoopee!
Yeah, that comes through.
And the thing that I want to hear about, well, I want to hear about whatever you feel like talking about, but one thing that I'm particularly interested in hearing about today is what it was like to be a young person during the Depression.
The olden days, in other words.
I would like to hear about, well, first of all, I would like to hear about when you think the Depression was. Was it 1930?
Mm-hmm.
And how old was everybody then, and what were you doing? That's what I'd like to hear about.
Marcia was about 9.
I remember when the banks closed, because I had, when everybody else was getting allowances, I guess you got allowances, as you and Margaret,
Don't remember that.
certain amount of money. Well, anyway, I maybe got a quarter a week or something.
That was 32 because that's when Roosevelt went in. He's the one
Well,
that
yeah, but
caused-
the banks closed in 29. No, the stock market crashed in 29. The banks closed.
Crash. The
Well,
bank
anyway.
was about 30.
I lost 12 whole dollars
Oh.
at Commerce Bank,
You're
no,
a cheater.
Commonwealth Bank.
Commonwealth.
I remember Dad used to go there on
Yeah.
Saturday, used to do his banking up on Woodward and Hazelwood. And my whole life savings was shot to pieces.
Hard-earned
I
money.
watched my mouth.
Now let's listen to this, shall we, and see what happens.
Okay.
We don't want to be talking to zero here.
Beware the dial diddler. Okay, so you lost $12 at the Commerce Bank.
Yeah, I didn't lose it, they lost it for me. I knew right where it was, but all of a sudden it wasn't there anymore.
Right where it used to be.
And what did people say to you as a 9-year-old? I mean, how did they explain to you what was happening?
I don't think
I
they
don't
bothered.
think they bothered. I don't think it's... Really, I think probably you might have to admit too, Anna, that we as two families probably weren't hit as badly as a lot of others, although I
No, some
remember...
people really, really
I mean,
injured.
We were pretty badly hit because of the business my dad was
Well,
in.
sure, that's right.
He was in the real estate business, and each time he would be building an apartment or a store, or one time he built a whole complex, and the upstairs there was a big dance hall with a teacher and so forth, and downstairs there was a movie and
Grocery stores.
two, 3 stores of different kinds. And we would go, I remember riding out there with him on a Saturday night to collect the Monster Ranch over on the east side of town. But anyhow, during this time,
Don't do that because it rattles a lot.
during this time, the real estate business just was, the rug was pulled right out
Yeah,
from under my
yeah.
dad's business because he had to put the money in. And then the last apartment that he built was the last one that was built in Detroit for probably the best part of 10 years. And the only way he could get any money out of it was for us to go and live there, which was fortunate because we lost our house.
Oh, I didn't
Mortgage was
realize that.
foreclosed. We just didn't have the capital. The capital was all in his business, in the last building he did. So we were just glad there was a place to retire to.
Well, yeah.
And so we lived in that apartment, I would say, for about 2 years. And it was a rough time. My dad really had no work for almost 2 years. But he had friends who had helped him. One time he came home and said that he had met such and such a person downtown, and he said, "Bill, I will do $50 for at least 2 years, and I have it today, and I think I better give it to you." And that would be the way it would be. It was the happenstance. And finally, his friend George Pitts said to him that he himself had to go into the hospital for something very serious, and he would be out of the office, we had a coal business, for at least 6 months. Would Daddy come and run his business for him? Well, Daddy went, with him, and he had a good secretary who knew all the office part, but he had to go out and talk to customers and sell coal. Well, Daddy was good at this, and he learned the business, and when George came back a couple of days a week, and then pretty soon he was able to be there the whole week, and Daddy knew it was time to part. So we said to George, now, I know all these people in the apartment business, and George, would you mind if I went into the coal business but sold only soft coal? Because George dealt only in hard coal. And that was fine with George, so Daddy got started in this little business. And finally worked it up, and after a few years then he was taken into a big outfit, Champion Fuel. But those early years, when he had no work, and then just building it up on a shoestring, those were very lean years for the Montgomerys. But we managed, and we were all very happy, and I think we learned then that you didn't have to have money to be happy.
No, well, I don't think we consider ourselves at that time to have money or to not have money. I really, as I remember one thing about when Evanly Woodison was having a pretty bad time, and Dad used to bring some stuff home. And I can remember Dad down in the basement bottling some of this compound or whatever it was. I remember Almeda and I would go down with them. Sometimes I can still, Almeda said she can still remember the smell, and so can I.
What was it?
I don't know what it was.
I think it was polish, something polish.
Yeah, polish or cleaning compound of some sort or another.
Maybe you were pasting labels on the bottles or something.
Oh, maybe that's what it was, yeah. But
I did some of that too, pasting labels on.
So you never were without a place to live, and you never were without food in the Depression?
No. However, I can remember coming home from school and Mama saying to me, now, we have here $5, honey, and out of that I want you to go to the store for me and get such and such and such. You don't get anything extra, and make sure that he charges you the right amount. Now, I have figured it out, and it will come to just under $5. So you had to be very careful and get exactly what Mama said, and nothing substituted. And I'd come home, and she was right. She had it right down to a penny, but it was very lean times.
Now, do you think that experience is what makes you add up your groceries now, and you can add up groceries in your head before the clerk checks you out?
Well, pretty close. I can be pretty close to it.
Because I've seen you be within a few cents of a big shopping cart full of groceries.
That's right. I think that's probably it. That, and when we were first married, we were under such a tight budget that we really had to do this. I had to know what we had spent for our groceries and what we had spent for laundry.
Our grocery budget was $25 a month, I can remember that.
The
two of us.
A
Whose
month.
grocery budget? You two.
The two of us.
Yeah, $25 a month. We didn't go hungry. We didn't have to skimp.
But
that
they
was
had to
good.
be wisely purchased and wisely cooked
No
and used.
Coca-Cola or potato chips or any of
No.
that kind of stuff.
And you never ate at restaurants. That was all
No.
home.
That's all.
There wasn't any restaurant in Northville. If you had wanted to eat in a restaurant, you were out of luck.
Now, was that still the Depression when you were living in Northville?
Well, it was the
No.
tail end of it,
Yeah.
1939.
And when you consider Daddy's first year's income was $1,300
That's right.
That was for the
for
year.
a year.
10 months of school, really, so that's why I worked in the summer. I worked at Ford, I worked at Cadillac, I worked at Twin Pines. Where else did I work? Wayne County Road Commission. Those are the four I think I walked in.
So you were pretty little. So when the Depression ended, you were just getting out of your
$12.
teenage
$12.
years.
$12.
That was her budget for the year.
I was just getting, well, like if you want to talk about 39,
Well, there you were getting out of high school then.
I was getting out of high school.
She was Mrs. Who in our town? Mrs. Webb or Mrs. Gibbs?
I can't remember to tell you the truth. And I dropped my yearbook in the lake up north one year, and it's all the pages are glued together, so I can't look back and see.
Oh, and I went to that. That was a good
Yes,
production.
that was good. That was a
Yeah,
good
I was
job.
either Mrs. Gibb or
Was
Mrs.
Mr.
That's one of my
Lewis still
favorite plays.
conducting? Was Mr. Lewis
Lewis,
still the
yeah,
director?
Mr. Lewis.
He was the director when I was in the senior play.
And that was at Northern High
Northern.
School?
That's right.
Northern High School in Detroit, Michigan.
Right, correct.
We all went there.
Woodward and
Yaney?
Claremont.
The Aneys and the Montgomerys.
Everybody went to Northern High School.
in the Mayhew.
Where did you go to,
Crosman and Hutchins.
oh, you went all three places
Mhm.
too. By that time you lived on
Taylor.
Taylor, yeah.
So
Yeah,
Crosman
you-
was the elementary school.
Yeah,
Hutchins was the middle school.
that's right,
And Northern was the high school.
that's
They
right.
used to call them intermediate schools.
That's right.
Intermediate.
It thought was very décolleté.
We didn't know it at the time, but Hutchins Intermediate was a show place. People came from all over the country to look at it. We had 2 swimming pools, we had 2 gymnasiums. We didn't know it. We thought everybody's this way in intermediate, but apparently we found out later.
Jesse and
Thank you.
Margaret were in, I think, the second year,
class.
second class. It was that new.
Well, why was it fancy? Just because it was new, or
New
because it
building,
was in a wealthy
New
area?
features. Well, it was a well-to-do area, but it was nothing fancy.
It had
nothing
2
rich.
pools,
Yeah.
2
yeah,
pools, boys and girls.
yeah.
And I think very few places in Detroit.
Northville didn't have one pool when you graduated,
Right. I was deprived and I didn't even know it.
but you was a good swimmer later.
Learned to swim on summer vacations
Right.
from Lake Michigan.
I did.
And didn't you go with a group over to,
Yes, that was
Training
training school.
To
school?
the training school, yeah, I went to the training school. I got my junior lifesaver and my senior lifesaver, and then when I was at the University of Michigan, I got my water safety instructor.
Mhm.
Mr. Del Campo or some name like that at the Wayne County Training
So
School.
it was Mr. Del Campo.
We used to laugh at his shorts. He had baggy shorts. He'd walk around the pool giving directions. Oh, was that a Girl Scout? No, that wasn't a Girl Scout. It would be Northville Recreation Department probably that would take you out there to that training school for
Okay.
swimming.
I forget just what group it was.
Now go back to this depression time.
Oh, you keep thinking about money all the time. Go.
Golly.
I'm not thinking about money so much as I'm thinking about how the experiences of our youth and young adulthood shape us as adults.
Mhm.
For instance, you know, my comparable thing, I mean, I think the depression was to you maybe what Vietnam was to me.
Let's see, you were born in 47. Vietnam came along in 63 or 64.
I was in high school,
She graduated in
16 or
65.
17.
and I had friends, when I was at the University of Michigan, I had friends who were fighting in Vietnam.
Mhm.
Did you?
Mhm.
They would have graduated in the class of 69 from U of M.
Well, it's the same principle as me graduating from high school and just before World War II, before the United States became involved.
Yeah,
Practically everybody at Wayne, all the men were gone,
right.
all husbands and engaged persons and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff were all gone
They all got picked up, yeah.
for what, presumably 40 years.
I thought I was on the way, and I went down with another fellow from Northville to the Naval Officers Procurement Branch in the Book Tower. And then I asked George about it. I said, this is the deal they gave me. I'm going to be a Lieutenant JG or something like that. And they told me what my uniform allowance would be and so forth. He said, hold it. He was already in the Navy at that time. He was at Notre Dame or Cornell or somewhere like that. He says, you're still sleeping in your own bed at night, and you're a teacher. So
You
keep
got-
your mouth shut
and you got 2
and wait and
kids.
see what happens. Yeah, we had one
You're one
child at
kid,
that
yeah.
time, right? And the combination of being,
George Robertson was telling me
Yeah.
this?
being my age and having a boy and being a teacher, apparently that was the end of it. And
Yeah,
he
you
got
wouldn't,
picked
you
up.
wouldn't.
I got a draft card, and I can't remember what my classification was.
Why wouldn't he have been drafted?
Because he was married and had a child who was supporting a family, and they wanted
But George
to...
was married to you.
No, we weren't married until the war was into the third year.
Oh.
And we were married in 44.
44.
Oh.
But he went in 42.
Bill was born in 40, so that sort of took care of it. And our superintendent asked me, would it be okay with you if I asked for a deferment because it's just important? I said, it's okay with me.
There were
We did
very-
that,
yeah.
and
There
that
were-
settled it, I guess.
They were asking a deferment because there were so few men left in the school system.
Yeah, I think I only went to the draft board once, and that was satisfactory to them. Never had any arguments, so that was it.
Well, and there was a lot to be said, too, that they wanted to get. I don't mean that everything was on a monetary basis, but they were having to pay child support or support for families
Yeah.
of men whose children were left at home if they went into the
Soldiers were
Armed
getting
services.
$21 a month, I remember that.
That's all they were getting, but if they were if they had any dependents, the
Yeah.
dependents were getting
They would get
a certain
something.
amount for each, and so what they were trying to do with the draft was to draft the ones who were unencumbered
Right.
at that point.
And when they got boosted to $30 a month, that was a red letter day. $30 a month, $1 a day for being in the Army. Hot dog.
A lot different than it is nowadays if they enlist in the,
Well, if Richard could tell us what he got in the Navy, that would be spectacular
Yeah.
compared to what they got back then.
well, even what George got as an officer, I mean, he got,
Oh, yeah.
he got a pretty good,
They told me I think I would get $350 for a uniform allowance.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't mean anything to me because I didn't know what I'd have to buy, but they told me,
you
here's
had to
a
have
dress
two of this.
uniform and, well.
Now, Uncle George was in the Navy,
Navy Reserve,
Navy Reserve.
yes.
So did that entitle you to PX privileges and all that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And is there a PX in the Detroit area that you could go to?
There might have been one, I don't know, Fort Wayne maybe?
Oh, I think it only entitled you to PX if you were living on the base with your husband, or if you were living on a Navy base or something. But you see, the reserve officers were taken in, they were not regular Navy. They were taken in as an adjunct to the regular Navy, and they remained reserve officers. They were not,
Oh, were they?
I mean, you would have never been part of the actual U.S. Navy.
see.
You were strictly reserved for the war.
USNR. US
Yeah,
Naval Reserve.
and our,
Hmm. Now, here's another thing I'm curious about. Nowadays, in 1991, everybody's trying to recycle newspaper and recycle aluminum cans and save stuff. And my understanding is that during World War II, people were pretty careful about things and tried to, they didn't call it recycling, but sort of the equivalent in those days.
They did.
who you
yeah.
had, oh yes, you were forced to, let's say.
They cut the ends out of cans, soup cans and vegetable cans, and bent them flat, and you were supposed to turn those in.
And where did you take them? Like, how did they work out that
I don't
system?
remember where that was. You didn't get any money for them. That's
No,
just
no,
your duty
it's
as a
just-
good citizen.
Actually, I think it was as much to cut down on the trash or refuse as much as anything
was
else.
steel.
The
All those
aluminum,
cans are made of
yes,
steel,
was
yeah.
used. Didn't we have to separate them from the rest of the trash or
remember that.
garbage?
Yes,
I
yes,
remember
we
that.
did.
And
And
of
put them
course-
in boxes or something.
Look at all the things that were rationed.
Yeah.
Butter, sugar, coffee,
Meat.
meat,
Gasoline.
tea, shoes,
Mhm.
gasoline.
And people had to look at their stamps to see if they could buy a pair of shoes for a junior.
Issued a certain number of stamps, and that's where a lot of the carpooling came in those
Right.
days, because people did have cars.
So many gallons a
but
month
you
is all
only-
they got.
yeah, and you got, they gave you, according to if you drove to your work or
Yeah.
because of your work, then you were allowed a little bit more, but they still carpooled.
A, B, C, D or something like that.
And we didn't have a car at all,
No,
because
we-
Chuck, we could walk everywhere in town that we needed to go. Chuck would walk back and forth to,
Didn't have a car, the bill was about 10, as I recall.
yeah, Carol was two or three.
So you recycled a lot.
Yes, every
and you,
can
and
we
you
had.
conserved a lot.
Teachers had the job of rationing the sugar. I can remember being on duty a certain number of days a week. In the afternoon, all the citizens would come in to look for their meat and sugar and coffee coupons. And we were issuing them to
You
each
got
family.
so much per person, per family, per person in the family.
So many pounds of meat. And once you ran out of that, that was your meat for the month. That was it.
And in turn, you got like ration stamps?
Yeah.
Now, did those come in the mail, or how did they get those to you?
I don't know if we handed them out or if they came from the government in the mail, but everybody, there was
You
no
had to go to
question.
school.
Somebody heard about, they had scare stories, you know, here comes sugar rationing, and some people would hear that it was coming and they would rush down to the grocery store and buy all the sugar they could
Yeah.
get their hands
Yeah.
on.
Hoarding that.
Before the hoarders get started, I'm gonna go out and buy 50 pounds of sugar.
And Florence went out and got a lot of sugar,
Did
I
she?
remember, yeah.
And the story that came out in the newspaper one time, everybody was chuckling in glee because some joker in Detroit had gotten himself 800 pounds of sugar and the sewer backed up in his basement. And that was the end of his 800 pounds of sugar.
Poetic justice.
Right. How did I learn that, devil?
Oh, there was nothing a dirtier word than a hoarder in
Yeah,
those
that's
days.
right.
A hoarder is a bad person.
Hoarder was a bad person in those
So an antisocial kind of.
Well, just didn't care
People
about the
trying
other
to
guy.
steal gasoline out of the tank without
Yeah.
paying any stamps for it.
Well, remember a good story on the rationing of clothing, of shoes, particularly because of the leather, I guess. And
Oh.
But when I was going to be married, and Almeda offered up, I don't know how many stamps we got per year for shoes, but she offered up a stamp
A
to
shoe
go
stamp?
along.
Uh-huh.
I guess it was an amount of money or
No,
it
just a
must
pair of
have been-
shoes of any price. That
Well,
was the
and why
supreme
would I
sacrament.
had to have two stamps in order to get these shoes?
Well, I
Well,
don't know.
anyway, she
One for
offered
each
up
foot.
the size of my feet, if possible. But I remember she gave me one, added my stamp to her,
Yeah.
or
Oh, I
her
see.
stamp to my stamp, so I could get my going away shoes.
Oh, yeah.
So I paid a whole lot of money for my going away shoes.
$7
Because-
or something.
Oh no, I had bad feet to fit,
Oh.
and so I really paid the bucks for that.
You and
And
me
then,
both.
then Almeda said, well, now you can't have it going away without a hat. Well, I said, I'm not gonna buy a hat, I won't wear a hat. She
Mhm.
said, you're gonna get a hat. So after paying like $45 for a pair of shoes, well,
Did you really?
him a hose and bought a hat in the hat bar for $4.75. Didn't need a stamp for that.
I didn't realize you could pay $45 for shoes.
Oh, well,
Now,
yeah, well,
Well,
yeah,
what were they? They were heels, they were pumps.
Yeah, but they were all leather.
Narrow, were they narrow or
Oh,
long or both?
narrow and
Narrow
long.
and long,
Well, I had the
Same
same.
deal, yeah.
Yeah, and they used to have something like
Long,
9.5 quadruple A or
Well,
something like
mine
that.
was 4A toe if I could get it in a 6A or 5A heel. And there
Mhm.
were certain places you could get these.
Oh,
And even as a kid, I can remember going into the store to buy a pair of shoes, maybe at age 12 or
Mhm.
13. And maybe in my size, they'd have two different styles.
Mhm.
Take your
That's
pick.
all, yeah.
both
That's
ugly,
it.
eh?
Two
Anybody-
colors, maybe, if
yeah.
you're lucky.
Yeah, might have the same thing, only two different colors or something,
Mhm.
but that's all with that.
Mhm.
That was,
Fifes was the only place I could get shoes for a while.
yeah.
Mhm.
Big shoe store, nothing but shoes, that whole building, 7 or 8 stories, right on the corner of Woodward and Grand Circus Park, Fife's Shoe Store.
Fifes,
Fife, F-Y-F-E, yeah.
F-Y-F-E.
Corner of Adams and Woodward.
And I can remember butter, that's when Oleo came out, remember that terrible stuff? You get the Oleo and then it came white, sort of, ugh.
With a little envelope of orange powder, yeah.
With orange coloring in it.
To make you feel better about it.
Then you had to
Squish it.
squish it all together to make it look like
Make it
butter.
look like
And
butter.
it didn't taste like butter, and it didn't look like butter.
Was it
And
kind of like
didn't-
Crisco? Was it just kind of white and
Kinda,
lardy
yeah.
and?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think it was much worse than what we have now.
Well, I think the stuff now
Well,
is a lot better.
only the
Yeah.
process has made it,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have, I have butter around for guests,
Hmm.
but normally I get
Yeah,
Oleo.
so.
We haven't bought butter in years.
I got,
Now, they're even getting the price on Oleos, even getting
Yeah.
up around butter anyway, so.
Right.
I got some about 3 or 4 years ago. I got some butter for a special occasion, and you could taste something in it. And that finished it for me. I don't know if it was onions or what, but there was a
How you
taste.
got into the onion patch, I
There's
don't know
a
what.
definite
Oh,
taste, and
Well,
I
where we
thought,
live in Spain, they don't use butter or oleo. They just use olive oil. And
Oh.
if
Yeah.
you want something on your bread, you put a little olive oil
Oh, I
on
see.
there. They don't mess with those dairy products at all.
Is that so?
Mhm.
No cows around the territory?
There are cows up in northern Spain, but down where we are, they don't drink milk. If you want milk, they have those boxes, those kind of vacuum sealed boxes.
Yeah.
mhm.
And you can get your milk in there, and they just store it on the store shelf. They don't even refrigerate it.
Hmm.
And then once you open it, you have to refrigerate it. But
Hmm.
they're not big dairy
It's
folks.
pasteurized, of course.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, now here's another thing I'm interested to know. Think about your youth and your growing up years and when you were kids and when you were teenagers and when you were young adults. What was it about your family that made you happy? Was there something that you did with your family or something about your family that was a lot of fun? Or that,
Well, we went camping. That was fun. I don't think it was much fun for Mama.
No,
She said, if I'm going to go cooking and washing dishes and things, I'd rather do it in my own kitchen.
She said
instead of in a tent
camping
somewhere
was
up
all
north.
she used to say camping was all the inconveniences of home.
Yeah. And we started going to a cottage up in Muskoka. After camping there once or twice, we went to a great big cottage. And we and Uncle Bob and Aunt Cecil were there. And Mother's and Dad's old friend, Edith and Ted, were there with their daughter,
yeah.
Florence. And once in a while, Uncle Bob or Aunt Cecil would have a pal drop in. That was very nice. Ruth cut her own hair one day when she was supposed to be having her nap.
That was one of the years that I chose to stay home with Grandma.
Yeah.
I
You
was
stayed home with Grandma?
I stayed home with Grandma because we had a gay good time together.
Now, Grandma was Margaret Henwood Yaney.
Right.
And you and Margaret Henwood Yaney stayed home.
We were buddies.
Marcia also had a nice trip with Grandma out west to see her brothers.
Well, Margaret did too when
Did
she
she?
was the same age as I did. Grandma took-
Manitoba and Saskatchewan.
Right.
Grandma
Yeah,
had
Uncle
two
Ed
brothers.
and Uncle Edward.
Right.
And they were Canadians. They didn't
Yep.
mess with coming to the U.S. at all.
No, they were born in Ontario and they went out to Manitoba and Saskatchewan. 3,000 acres of wheat or something like that, man. It was a big property out there.
So they were wheat farmers.
Yeah. One of them was, I'm not sure which.
Well, I think it was Uncle William that had the big spread. I think
Uh-huh.
Uncle Edward's farm was smaller than that.
And weren't they the tall uncles?
No,
No,
that was on the Yaney and the Smith
That was
side.
on the Smith
Yeah,
side.
Grandma
No, Uncle
Smith had
Edward
two.
was a little bitty guy. I
Was
don't
he?
think I bet he wasn't 5'5".
No,
Because Chuck showed me pictures of uncles that were tall, but they were the Smith
never
side.
showed you pictures
That's
of them,
Smith.
but told you about them.
Oh, yeah.
So the Smiths were tall and the Yaneys were short?
It wasn't even the
I don't
Smiths,
know.
it was the Thrashers.
Yeah, but
Grandma.
how tall was Grandpa Date?
Well, he was taller.
Well, Grandma was tall, fairly tall.
You think
young
she was?
lady. Well, I've seen pictures of her.
Oh,
I mean, I would think she would have been as tall as Margaret when she was.
oh yeah. We think about her,
Before
you know,
she-
as being 90 years
Before
old, she was all bent
began
over.
stooping, you know. But no, I've said the picture, even that picture I've got up there on the wall, it shows that she's fairly, I mean, 5 foot.
Grandpa was slim, and
Six,
that's
something
what
like
made
that.
him perhaps look tall, but how tall he was, I don't know. I have the idea that he was taller than Dad. Maybe
I
Dad
think
was halfway
so, yeah.
between his dad and his mother as far as height went.
So camping is what you remember.
Mhm.
Camping and having friends visit. And you remember staying home with Margaret Henwood Yaney and having the whole house to
I
yourselves.
don't do it all the time. No, one of the sneaky reasons I did that was because I loved to visit my cousin Dorothy Smith
Mhm.
in Sandwich, and normally when I went over with the family, it always had to be Ruthie and
Mary.
Mary, and I loved to go to spend the weekend with
Mhm.
Dorothy and Woody.
Oh, yeah.
They lived across the alley from Grandpa
They were-
Smith on the same street.
And Sandwich is now Windsor?
Right.
Well, part
And
of
by the Ambassador Bridge, about a mile below the Ambassador Bridge, downriver.
So it's not an island.
No, no.
For some reason I had it in my head that Sandwich was an island.
No, are you thinking of Crow Island where Grandpa was born?
Yeah, that's
Grandpa
probably-
Yaney was born on
That
Pearl
was,
Island.
we were talking about that one time, was it truly an island? Or
I don't
was it
know
a little-
that.
more of a spit.
There used to be a place,
Yeah.
before they put in 75 and 23, there used to be a place between Saginaw and Bay City where there was a sign, Crow Island.
Right across
As
from
you
the
passed
Chevy
it.
plant there.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was.
I haven't been up that road ever since the expressway was open.
Well, no, you don't.
You like going to Sandwich to visit your cousin Dorothy.
Well, I liked going to Sandwich. I liked going any place. I think all kids want to
We rode on the
go.
streetcar down to the foot of Woodward, got on the ferry boat, got off the ferry boat and got on another streetcar and rode down to Chippewa
Yeah.
Street.
And on Chippewa Street is where they lived.
Right.
And now, who were they? They were your
They were-
mother's
Brother Charlie.
brother's kids.
Mhm.
See, Grandpa Smith, Mother's father, lived on Chippewa Street, and he built, or he bought, or built homes for each of his kids
We
right
had
there.
4
on
houses in a row.
Four in a
Uncle
house.
Bill was there, we were there, Grandpa was here, and Uncle Charlie was here. 4 houses in a row.
So those were the 4 Smith kids.
Well,
Four
4
of them, yeah, there were 2
There were
others.
6 altogether.
There.
Uncle James still lived at home because he was a bachelor type fellow, young fellow. He lived at home.
And then he didn't build one for Almeda, or he did?
No, that was Dad's job.
No,
We
no,
lived
you
in
mean,
one of his
you mean
houses.
Almeda, Graham Almeda.
Almeda Smith.
Yeah, well,
We lived
that's
next
where they were
door.
born. That's
Yeah.
where your dad and Aunt Margaret
Okay, so
and
the
Uncle-
of the 4 houses, run them by me again now?
Uncle Bill, we, Grandpa, and Uncle Charlie.
And James still lived with his
James
parents.
was at home with Uncle James.
And then who does that leave? You said there was another one.
Aunt Gertie.
And Gertie she was up on the next street. She was up by Mill Street, which was about 2 long blocks from us. She and Uncle Osborne lived on Mill Street near the post office. Now there were 6 of them, 3 boys and 3 girls. William, Gertrude, May. Where was May living?
Well, she was off.
She might have still been married at that time.
Married to Uncle Jay,
Yeah.
traveling with the baseball people.
And he was with the Cleveland Indians and the Philadelphia Athletics and the Detroit Tigers, so she was moving around a lot before she cut him loose.
So
And
she traveled with him a lot.
She came back and lived with Grandpa then.
But that's where, on Chippewa Street was where your dad and Aunt Margaret and Auntie L were born.
Mhm.
All 3 of them were born in that
But you
house.
weren't born there. You got
No,
born in this
She
country.
was born in Highland Park, yeah.
And Carol, Alameda was just little when it came over.
Yeah, when did they come over? Almeida was born in
About a
17.
year before you were born, I think.
Oh, more than that, because...
2 years, 1919.
Oh, sure,
Almeida was in
because...
2.
Yeah, well,
She was born
more
in
than that.
17.
17. But didn't they come over in 18?
And 18, I don't know.
I thought they bought the place in 18.
I know
So
Grandpa
the
died.
3 oldest kids had dual citizenship, or could have had dual
have had
citizenship,
it,
but
right.
you
But
just
they
had
didn't
US.
have to, because there was another thing.
Yeah.
The very fact that Grandma, being a Canadian subject, married Grandpa, who was a
Choose
No,
about being
no.
Americans or Canadians.
They were
We could have.
automatically.
When we
They're
became
automatically
20
Americans.
When we became 21, we could have. If we had
Yeah.
decided that we wanted
Yeah.
Canadian as well as U.S., we could have done it, but nobody was interested.
Why weren't you interested?
No reason to be. We didn't plan to move to Canada.
Well, by that time, they'd all been living in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
So you didn't see any advantages for maintaining Canadian citizenship?
Tort Mayhew married a Canadian, and Elizabeth Watson married a Canadian. And I don't know what they did about their U.S. citizenship. I imagine they held on to it. They
On
can't-
that tape that we have, that we made, that videotape that we made down in Florida last
Mhm.
year, Almeida was explaining about Aunt Mamie,
Oh,
how she and Daddy were born in Saginaw,
right.
and they moved to Sandwich when the lumber company moved there,
Mhm.
and they married brother and sister. They married Grandma Yaney and
Bill and
Uncle
Almeida.
Bill.
Yeah.
But by marrying Uncle Willie, Aunt Mamie became a Canadian subject.
Yeah.
So she was no longer an American. So then they moved to Flint, Michigan,
Mhm.
and Uncle Willie takes out his American citizenship. And so Aunt Mamie's back in the United States, but she's still a Canadian subject. She was born in the United States, but she became a Canadian by marriage. But when she moved back, she didn't go through
She and
the...
Daddy knew each other in grade school. They both came from Crow Island, and their papas both worked for the same company.
Oh, isn't that
So
fun?
they went to Sandwich at the same time. The company moved Grandpa and
They
Aunt
married-
Mamie's father, Mr. Hinley, and the
Grandpa.
dad married Mama, and Mamie married Uncle Bill.
So Sandwich is just, so Crow Island is just off the coast of Sandwich.
So, no, Crow Island is in Michigan,
Michigan. Grandpa was born in Michigan.
between Saginaw and Bay City.
Okay, now let me picture that, between Saginaw and Bay City.
Right.
Along the river there.
Okay,
You know where the Zilwaukee Bridge is?
more or less.
They could have thrown a baseball from their home to the Zilwaukee Bridge. That's how close they're, right on the Saginaw River.
So Aunt May was your aunt.
Aunt May, she was
She
Mother's
was-
sister.
She was my great aunt.
Right.
And she was married to a professional baseball player
Right.
for several years, and then she divorced him.
Right.
And she never married again.
No.
And she never married again, and she wore her hair in a little bun and
Yeah.
really gray, tweaked it and beat.
The road runner.
And she had a great deal of style. Didn't she always
Oh,
get
yeah,
dressed
she-
just right?
yeah.
Panache.
She'd almost bend over and fall on the floor laughing at Willie, you know. He just tickled her.
Now, where do you suppose she developed that sense of style?
Don't know. She made her own clothing.
Yeah.
In fact, Grant, he usually looks up the driveway. I think he still expects.
Look at the
to see-
strings you've got on that little bird. Thing must be 15
He
feet long.
wanders all over the
Oh.
place.
You got a little red coat on.
Well, would you like to take a break?
Sure.
Okay.